I'm going to talk about a case study, which is Bryce Norton, an aircraft maintenance hangar. But before I go into to perhaps the detail of the hangar, I'll just set it in some context. We've got kind permission from the Defence Infrastructure Organisation, DIO, our client, to share this with you today. And they were very keen that we actually articulate, briefly perhaps, the benefits of BIM, not only for them as a client, but for the whole process. So the context side of things, BIM is our default way of working in the States. We've got over 200 live BIM projects. And however integrated the supply chain are, very few would be equivalent to BIM Level 2. Very few customers require the data. But BIM is a given in terms of the expectations of most customers. We do BIM in Hong Kong. We've got over 70 live projects in the UK, and 20 of those, or more than 20, are what we'd all know as BIM Level 2. Without the ability to demonstrate our credentials, we would not be able to secure work, which you all know. We also did a survey of all our UK BIM projects a while ago and asked the project team to report, tell us how it is for you. Have you seen any benefit? Out of those responded, every project reported that BIM helps to reduce risk. These are some of the benefits that the DIA were very keen for us to share. Majority reported that it improved project efficiency, improved services coordination, and where the client was engaged, i.e. participated in maybe design reviews, clash detection workshops, and so forth, it enhanced the engagement process and significantly reduced approval periods. Where projects could capture metrics in terms of cost saving and time saving, a third reported it saved cost from £8,000 on temporary works integration on a small school to a £10 million capex saving on one large project. Almost a third said it could help reduce program savings and could quantify it by 2 weeks or 3.5 months on one large infrastructure project. So as you can see, these benefits are substantial, and our task internally within Balfour Beatty is to try and see that these benefits are consistently achieved across all our projects. Easier said than done. Current BIM Level 2 projects, you can see a range of percentages. These are based on our pipeline. So this is our bid work as well as live Level 2 projects. So a mixture of health, education, infrastructure, and Ministry of Defence, all requiring BIM Level 2. We are fortunate recently to have received our certification for our processes by the BSI, that they're in accordance with BIM Level 2 requirements. So on to Bryce Norton. For those of you who are Mission Impossible fans and follow Tom Cruise, what has this got to do with BIM? Well, in his latest Mission Impossible film, The Rogue Nation, you probably saw him strapped to the side of a plane. Well, those planes require maintenance, and they will be maintained in the hangar that we're constructing, that will be handed over this summer. It's our ultimate client is the DIO, but Airbus will be the tenant who will undertake the work within the hangar. So the hangar will cover 3 aircraft. You see the value, and it's BIM Level 2. Interestingly enough, perhaps on all our current BIM Level 2 projects, none are identical. But there is a common factor amongst all of them that each of our customers have asked us to work with them to develop the data and asset list and requirements. Nobody has a pre-structured list to say this is all the assets that we need and this is the technical data that we require. Each one of them have required or been part of a collaborative process. And this particular project, Bryce Norton, is no exception, and together with DIO and with the team, we've developed the list of assets. I'm grateful for the team, not only for their contribution in the project, which is going very well, but also their contribution to today's presentation. Most of our BIM projects within Balfour Beatty carry a BIM manager or BIM information manager. This particular project, because of the time it occurred, or time it started life, and due to early level 2 requirements, we actually employed AWW, the architect, to not only serve as architect and design team leader, but also to be our BIM manager on the project. So we're grateful for the other consultants who worked with us, Arabs and Baileys and Billington Structures. Together, the team looked at the asset list. Now, perhaps the lower part of the slide is debatable, but in our view, you could say that there are only 7 main pieces of information which is required from the supply chain, perhaps for discussion later. You could list tens of parcels of information on materials and products and components, but those are the key elements that we focused on. We talked about our team, and you've all seen BIM models before. We're using Revit on this particular project, and Navisworks. We're also using Celebri, and we acknowledge their contribution in this presentation. We'll talk a little bit about that. So we're working with the DIO, we developed key objectives, how they would use the data. The facilities management work streams, so optimize the handover, going into the asset register, linking with the operating and maintenance manuals and so forth. And of course, you might say it's a hangar, a big shed, very simple. But nevertheless, there's some areas of complex services, large steel frame, several workshops, and I wouldn't be giving due respect to this team if I congratulated them that according to our project manager, there wasn't a single clash between our MEP and structure and architectural work. So there is complexity, and these just demonstrate some of the office areas and workshop areas and link to the data. So what I'm going to talk about next for the remainder of the presentation is, and I'll try and be as simplistic as possible, a 10-point plan to a successful Kobe drop. Now, what kind of Kobe drop? This is the drop that will take place at practical completion. So in the time remaining, we've got just a few minutes. So number 1, the employer agrees the asset list. What information do they want, what format, and when? Number 2, what are the rules of the game that you're going to employ in this process? In this particular project, we use Uniclass 1.4 because of the time these decisions were made. There are updated versions available, of course. We also utilized specified Kobe as a delivery framework, and we chose Celebri as our QA model checker. Plus, we used a plugin of a Kobe extension for Celebri. Number 3, the architect or the designer populates the data in their respective authoring tool, which in this particular instance was Revit, in line with Kobe requirements. You could have a whole workshop on this discussion. What is important, though, is the data consistency. Revit, for instance, has a plugin. I do know, and this is not a pitch for Revit, there are other authoring software tools that are available to use that are equally good. But this particular project, the designers were all using Revit. Okay? And Revit users need some help perhaps to understand the Kobe processes, and that's where Celebri and their expertise were very helpful. We appreciate that. It does help if the authors can apply a Uniclass classification code to all the types, including perhaps those types not required in the drop, as it will help the structuring and sorting of data later on. Number 4, the data is exported into Solibri via IFC files. Now you can download various IFC translators, but basically the illustration shows some of the data options color-coded in Solibri. They help users to understand what information is accessible and related to which options are checked. We need to ensure the latest IFC plugin is installed by the authoring tools into Solibri. Sorry, it's getting a little bit techie. Number 5, halfway there. The IFC files are then checked or validated against a set of modelling rules through Solibri software. So the rules are first of all written in line with COBie requirements. The geometry checks are undertaken, perhaps showing missing spaces or areas that haven't yet been modelled. And then there's the data checks to check objects to ensure the correct data is associated with the elements. The Solibri software checks the model at each of the relevant stages. Number 6. After the data is checked and validated, then we communicate the results by BCF, which is a BIM collaboration format. It's an issue-based communication protocol, a scheme if you like. It's owned by Building Smart. And then you identify any corrections, additions that need to be made, and you repeat the loop and recheck. And then you need to capture on-site information. So you've captured information from the authoring tools, from the designer's input or supply chain input. And on this particular project, key elements of the hangar were steel frame, M&E, architectural, lifts, and all of those supply chain partners shared their models with us. So, but we've got to capture some information. So now, one way is to manually populate the information in the COBie spreadsheet, but that might be difficult for some supply chain members to understand where their data goes. And for those of you who've opened up a COBie spreadsheet that could have thousands of columns and worksheets, the last thing you really want to do is to start manually populating it, in my view. So there are work package solutions, and we worked with AEC BIM Solutions using a capture tool called Work Package Manager, which is separate from COBie, but it helps the supply chain to identify, make it easier for them to capture their relevant data to import into the whole. So, continuation of this point, so you capture the information. What is the project-specific information? You've got the product tool, which might be generic, who installed it, when it was installed, etc., etc. Number 8, nearly there. So you capture those main pieces of information. I said earlier on that you could argue there are only 7. There could be more than that, but whatever they are, it's where you capture the manufacturer, model information, serial numbers, etc., etc., and linked to operating and maintenance information too. So number 9, where required, manufacturers can provide information in COBie-based fields via product data sheets. Some of you might be part of the working groups of various institutes, CIBSE or Landscape or whoever, who are developing the product data templates for the respective products. These contain specific information. For instance, an example of the Landscape Institute, they hold all the PDTs for their industry. Based on standards, trying to get consistency across the board, which will then automatically or semi-automatically populate COBie information. And last but not least, you've gathered all the information, so you submit your models, your files, and the COBie file to the employer. And we'll be doing that in summer of this year. We've done some tests, and our systems are going well. So we're very confident of a successful handover, not only of the project, but also the associated data that goes with it. So in conclusion, what benefits have we realised to date on the project? Well, we've been fortunate to have a fully coordinated design, integrating the work of MEP, lifts, steel fabricator. We've got the team that understands the data organisation, the flows, the processes. We've talked about a clash-free environment. We've talked about enhanced safety through modelling, helping mitigate risks. So there's absolute clarity for all project stakeholders, and the client will get the higher quality of asset data from compared to a traditional project with drawings and documents. Was everything perfect? No. Is there areas for improvement? Absolutely. And just a couple here. Part of a hangar, large hangar, we would have really liked a nationally known, I won't name them, cladding supplier and installer to be BIM equipped on this project. They were not. And the project team were frustrated because even with their, and I'm talking about my Balfour Beatty colleagues now, not the designers used to the BIM, but my project colleagues were frustrated because some of the issues that came across, they understood how easily they could have been resolved if the cladding envelope supply chain member were producing models and be able to input into the whole, be able to resolve these issues virtually before you get to site. We've also didn't equip our full team with perhaps all the hardware that we would do on any normal site now, so they can access all the information, all the data, and to use it kind of quite widespread on the site, rather than having specific individuals having access to this information. So in summary, we're fortunate to have had a very smooth running project, clarity of the project information for everyone, including customers, those engaged in decision making. The data is all aligned to the EIRs, which is what you expect from a BIM execution plan and delivery. And thankfully, I hope we've met all our objectives that were stated in the client's EIRs. And we've saved time, improved efficiency through our clash detection work. So we're prepared for a successful handover. One point to share with this group, and it's an area that you might debate and consider. Clients ask for drawings, they ask for models, and they ask for data at the end of a project. However, as you get into the forensic level of data, which will be integrated into their FAM packages, fine, it's interesting to note that there's no yet recommended minimum for models to be handed over. You could have models that are purely design models only, and you could still have the data handed over without a single member of the supply chain sharing their models or even working in BIM. Perhaps that's not important, perhaps it might be. Food for thought. Thank you very much.